When things don't work as they should, it often means the standards are absent. Hands up if you had a late night because of scope creep or a pending audit on a project. My name is Trevor Mchugh. I'm a BIM management based in Toronto. Most of my experience is with infrastructure and industrial projects. In 2023, I completed a master's in BIM management, one of the highlights being a ISO 19650 simulated project. I have some real-world experience working with the standards, from developing a BIM execution plan for a rail transit hub to setting up a common data environment for an airport project. I also offer ISO 19650 Part 2 audit support. This lists the 6 parts of the ISO standards for BIM. Their origins are from the UK and they went through an international development process. The first part was published in 2018 and the most recent part 6, was published in 2025. These standards supersede previous standards, and you could say they are the missing standards manual for BIM. EU and new countries are participating in the standards. Building smart chapters globally promote the standards. Typically, you see them in use on large infrastructure programs. There are challenges working with the standards, from the understanding of the complexity of the requirements to the investment and training needs. Key considerations: pushback from the status quo, people who are overworked and don't want to take on any new roles or responsibilities. A robust common data environment is essential. Without it, collaboration and version control falls apart. Training for new roles and responsibilities to build confidence in working with the standards. Effort is needed to maintain the standards so they remain current and useful. Contractual clarity is critical, especially when it comes to defining the level of information need. Why use AI? It speeds up creating standard operating procedures and baseline project information standards. It's a powerful tool for cross-checking compliance against the standards and for efficiently creating project implementation plans. It also supports governance and QC. ROI. In terms of the standards, the ROI is clear. You get improved information quality across the asset lifecycle. There's costs and time savings. One of the key performance metrics to track is the reduced audit findings. The ROI on AI itself is more elusive, but if you combine the efficiency savings of ROI with the benefits of having implemented the standards, that's real value. Known issues with AI. AI is powerful, but only when we guide and validate it carefully. If we're not clear, it can produce vague or irrelevant results. Too often it tells us what we want to hear, which can hide errors in workflows. AI often delivers answers with authority even when it's wrong. Mistakes can slip into our documents or deliverables. That's why AI should always be treated as an assistant, not as a replacement for professional judgment. The key with using AI isn't blind trust, it's smart guidance. The clearer the input, the stronger the results. Always cross-check results against the standards. Training AI with official references and templates aligns it with real project needs. And finally, customize your AI. Tailored setups make it more accurate and project ready. The takeaway is simple. AI doesn't replace expertise, it amplifies it when we guide it properly. Next, I'm going to share the demo. This is a custom ChatGPT agent set up for implementing ISO 19650 standards. I'll first go and show you how it's configured. It was instructed to act as an information management consultant, and there was a 10-step project implementation outline added, some notes around a common data environment, and also an document audit list. There's some conversation starters here, which I will demo next. Down in the knowledge base, we have the 6 parts of the ISO standards added and some templates around the EIR, BEP, and the gap analysis, and a development on the 10-step project implementation plan. Next, I'm going to get into the conversation starters. So the first one is generate a gap analysis with a maturity matrix. This would be a good starting point for companies that want to do a soft internal audit in terms of their alignment with the ISO 19650 standards. By going through this, you can establish where your company's currently at and where there's gaps. The purpose is to find those gaps, and that will allow them to be addressed in the project implementation plan. So next, we'll go to the 10-step implementation plan. This will also list document requirements for each step. To start at the beginning here, establishing project objectives and scopes. We can do a demo here in terms of my master's project, which was an ISO 19650 simulator project. So here I'm going to upload the EIR document that we received on that project, and I'm going to ask the ChatGPT to review it. Please review this EIR document in terms of establishing the project objectives and scope. This project was an office building in Barcelona, and it was, as I say, a simulated ISO 19650 project. Here we've identified some gaps and areas for improvement. The EIR sets out project level goals, but it does not clearly tie them back to business or organizational objectives. That's a fair point, because we did not have an OIR and AIR in this project. The EIR was the starting point. Next, constraints and dependencies. No explicit statement of scope constraints, dependencies, or interferences with other aspects or projects. As I say, it was a simulator project, so it wasn't actually built, but yeah, in reality, there would have been probably interfacing projects. Decision mapping. While milestones are listed, there is no explicit mapping or decisions to information needs at each stage. A decision log would strengthen alignment with ISO 19650 Part 1. Risks and opportunities. No early identification of information risks or opportunities. For example, data security, model federation risks, software interoperability. So recommendations, add a business objective statement, document constraints and dependencies, provide a decision milestone matrix, and include an information risk log. To follow on from this, what we'll do is we'll upload the BIM execution plan for the project, and we'll ask it to review it. Please review this BIM execution plan in terms of meeting the requirements of the EIR document. Okay, we see the alignment from project information is good, project goals and BIM uses, standards and protocols, roles and responsibilities, common data environment, the level of information need are all getting the all clear. There are some gaps and risks in compliance. Yes, the EIR noted 9-story building where the BIM execution plan was 11. That would be the BIM execution plan accounting for the basement level and counting the first floor as well. Decision mapping. EIR link project goals to decisions but not provide full mapping. BP also lists milestones but lacks a decision information matrix. Information risks. Neither EI or BEP explicitly include an information risk register. So there's a non-compliance there. That's a pretty important one, the information risk register. Okay, we're missing some client-specific value drivers. And training and mobilization. BP includes some training provisions, but that does not fully describe competence verification. As I say, it was a part of a master's project, so there was ongoing training as we were completing the master's. So yeah, it does make some recommendations to strengthen the BIM execution plan. Next, I'm going to go to the next conversation starter. The common data environment setup and governance is very important. I would say it's critical. Here, we're just going to list the requirements as per the ISO requirements. Very important, the workflow states, the roles and responsibilities, and the document upload checklist, getting the naming standard correct and populating all the metadata such as the status, revision, suitability code. You would have to be very careful in terms of onboarding people. So I can speak to a real world project on this. On a recent airport project, we created 4 documents around the common data environment. One was for the project setup, and the next was for the review for uploading of documents correctly as per the naming convention and metadata. And also the review workflow was another document. And also we had an issue review document. Those 4 documents also were supplemented with a video guide. And that was one recommendation I would recommend, is having a short video guide for the use of your common data environment. It will help in onboarding people. Next, I'm going to look at in terms of getting certified for ISO 19650 Part 2. There is an extensive document requirement. Here I've listed out some of the typical documents you would need to have in place for a successful audit. So starting with your non-compliance report, typically after a gap analysis or a stage 1 audit, you would have some non-conformance items. They would have to be tracked and until they're closed out. So you do that in the corrective action tracker, noting the corrective action taken. You'll have to schedule your audit. And all these documents would have to be controlled in document log. Down here, you have standard operating procedures. These would have to be built out. For example, here you got an important one around the common data environment. And as I say, that may be multiple documents. You would have to at least probably have one guidance document around the specific platform you're using. Next, here we have a governance document for the common data environment and your typical project folder structure. So these would be your standard operating procedures. And you would also have your baseline project information standards. So for example, you would have a line matrix relevant to your discipline, and that would be referenced in your BIM execution plan. Now, that line matrix would have to be agreed with the the appointing party. There would have to be agreement on that specific to the project. And likewise with your common data environment, the naming convention and the metadata used, that would all have to be agreed in advance. You would also have to have your information requirement kind of templates for your EIR, AIR, PIR, and you would have to have your pre-appointment BIM execution plan and your post-appointment BIM execution plan, which would be basically you'd be building out your pre-appointment BIM execution plan. Some additional documents to consider here are the object library for your BIM objects. That would also have to be in a controlled environment, and there would have to be an audit trail, and it would have to be set up much like a common data environment. The reality is on these projects, you would typically have an ecosystem of common data environments. Some might be internal, and then there'd be the main common data environment that would be set up by the appointed party or the appointing party. Some specific documents here to the project, the task information delivery plan and the risk register. Getting down here, you obviously got your role descriptions, very important, and your training and competence metrics. Also, internally assessing capability and capacity, and also any partners would also have to be assessed also. Closing out with the risk register and lessons learned. And of course, training and review record is very important. To close out this demo, I'm just going to mention some of the lessons that I've recently learned with working with AI. First of all, I would say it has a tendency to offer to add too many additional documents, so you got to learn to say no. You can see the list of the documents is already pretty comprehensive. You don't want to be adding to your workload. And also, I would say be careful about adding extra ISO standards. I recently added ISO standards around management of artificial intelligence. And for this purpose of this demo, it was referencing too many ISO standards, and it was overcomplicating things. So if you're going to build out or implement AI in an organization, you want to build out a custom AI agent for advising on that process. And also, before making any substantial changes to your ChatGPT, I recommend copying it or making a backup of it. As I recently learned, if you go in here and you start making changes, you may regret some of those changes because it may not help your workflow. For example, here, if you go in and make suggestions here, it will automatically start reconfiguring your instructions here. So that's why I recommend making a copy of your ChatGPT before you start making those changes. I will go back to the presentation now to close it out. To recap, follow the ISO 19650 playbook for predictable, repeatable results. Start with a low-risk pilot project and track your lessons learned. Build AI compliance checks into everyday workflows, not just audits. Share your lessons learned and update your standard operating procedures as needed. For additional guidance, connect with myself on LinkedIn or others on the BIM Heroes platform. Thank you.